So look, I suppose, look, thanks for coming along and kind of giving up your time, Lorraine, to be sort of part of our TekCurious career chats. And I suppose just a bit of context for us and for why we're doing it. I think the more all of us can do sort of as an industry to promote careers in tech and to highlight the different sort of routes that people can have to get into the industry and then how they can progress, and also then sort of highlight for people that are already in the industry but want to sort of move up into management roles and leadership roles, and again sort of the many different career paths that are available to people. So I think that would be really useful. So if you want to give us a bit of an introduction into yourself, Lorraine, and sort of where you are at the moment, and then we can sort of get cracking if that works.
Yeah, cool. So I've recently moved role, so I started at Seccl 2 months ago, but I have quite a long established career in IT, and I've actually been in IT for 35 years. And I know you're going to say, but surely you're not even that age. But yes, I've been around for quite a while. I started when I was 18. I went to college after school, did an HND, started at the bottom of the ladder as an operator in the day when they had computer operators. It was the only opening I could get at the time. Did that to get into my next position, which was programming, and then over the 35 years, I've just built it up, and now engineering manager at Seccl.
Good. And I guess, look, what made you decide then? Because I mean, a lot of people that I speak to, they're kind of in the role that you're in and come up through the software development route, especially kind of tend to normally come through sort of a university route, if you'd like. And I think this is great. I think the more we talk about sort of different routes in, the better. But I guess what made you decide that sort of tech all of that time ago was the right career for you? Because I'm sure there were plenty of other things and to look at and to consider.
Well, I wanted to be a zoologist when I was about 7 or 8, but then I realised there wasn't really any money in that. So when I got to about the age of 12, that was back in the day when the ZX Spectrum came out. And I do remember, I got the ZX Spectrum, and I do remember typing in programs from magazines, for spending a whole weekend typing lines of code in and then not having it compile. That was back in the day. And it's ever since then, it's all I wanted to do. So at the time, I was brought up in Scotland, and you could leave education at the age of 15 as long as you stayed in full-time education. So and you were allowed to leave at certain times of the year. So I actually left school when I was 15. Had done the equivalent of my GCSEs, but the school couldn't offer me anything else in terms of IT or programming at the time. So I went on and did in Scotland, it was called an SNC. I suppose the equivalent would be an ONC in England. I did that for a year, and it was like a pathway into then a bigger qualification. So I did the SNC, and then I went on and did an HND at college. And by the time I finished that, I was just maybe turning 18, and I'd already done 3 years at college, and I didn't want to do any more at college. I just wanted to get into a working environment. So, and that was back in the day when Computer Weekly was sent out with all the jobs in the back of Computer Weekly. And I remember handwriting 120 letters looking for my first position. And I get 2 interviews, none in Scotland. I got an interview at ITN in London, and I got an interview at Avon County Council in Bristol. And I came down to Bristol for the interview, and I got the job. It took me 24 hours to come down for a 45-minute interview, and then all the way back up home to Glasgow, and I got the job. And my mum said to me, "Don't go to ITN in London, stay in Bristol." And I've been in Bristol now for 35 years.
Wow, that's a pretty cool story, isn't it? I like that. So I guess then, obviously, 35 years in IT, and I suppose just out of curiosity, what are the big changes you've seen then, sort of over that period of time, sort of where you are now, from sort of looking at sort of the entry level requirements and sort of the skill sets that sort of were there when you entered versus sort of now when you're at Seccl? Because I mean, I know you guys have got some really cool stuff you're doing to encourage more people into careers in IT. But I guess, what have you seen some of the stark sort of contrasts between when you started and then sort of through your career for those people wanting to get into tech?
So definitely the opportunities that are available now, but also the training that's available. What you can get for free these days on YouTube, the amount of resources that are on YouTube. And often when I'm interviewing people and I'm asking, so what are you currently investigating, what are you learning? And so many times they say, I watch YouTube videos. And so there's a lot of free resource out there to help take people onto that course. And like if you're interested in cloud technology, AWS and Azure, there's so many free offerings that they just encourage people into it. So I think that's that opportunity. The opportunity is a lot more. You don't have to go and buy expensive software to learn it these days. You can get open source software. So I think that's probably the big difference in those opportunities.
Mm-hmm. And do you think over time has sort of the softer side of what you're looking for to bring sort of either sort of graduates or sort of entry level sort of engineers into tech has changed at all?
Oh, completely. And the soft side of the job is actually bigger than the technical side. Soft side, looking at communication, looking at someone's attitudes, their behaviours, that is actually more than the technical. I would say we can always teach you the technical side, but if you're going to sit in the corner with headphones on and a hoodie up, then this isn't the company for you. There will be times when that is needed and you do need to concentrate, but actually it's all about communication and interactions. And that's a lot harder to find than just raw technical skills. So we can teach you those technical skills, but it's been that having a passion for it. You're constantly looking to learn, being open and open to communication, and it's that those sort of attitudes that are there is so much more important than the technical skills these days.
Yeah, no, that's interesting, isn't it? Because I think a lot of people have this stereotype idea, don't they? Sort of a career in IT, you must be quite good at sort of head down, sort of just staring at the computer. And I guess then sort of looking back, sort of what you know now, what would you have told yourself coming into that career sort of back then, sort of moving down from Scotland? What sort of different advice would you give yourself anything different advice wise, or would you sort of said you did the right thing?
I've enjoyed I love my career. I still love what I do. I don't think I would change anything. I pushed myself back in the day, 35 years ago. There wasn't many women in IT, and it's fair to say there's still not many women in IT. It's not. There's more now, but it's still we're still very much a minority. So I'd like to encourage females into the industry, and just go for it. You've got every opportunity out there. The stigmas aren't there that they used to be, but just go for it. And I still feel passionate about what I do every day, and to get up in the morning and still feel passionate about your job is the driver for me. If I didn't enjoy my job, I wouldn't do it, so I would change. But yeah, it's having that and that interest in technology. So I'm not hands-on anymore. I don't code on a day-to-day basis, but I still have an interest in the architectural side of things, the process-wise, and even at home I do that sort of. I'm a sort of say a first adopter of new technology.
Yeah.
Sort of in terms of like the network I've got at home and things like that. So it's having that passion and that interest in it. It really helps. And technology's it's so much more around us these days that you can't really avoid it. So the more you embrace it, the better.
No, that makes sense. And I guess, look, I mean, you've had a pretty impressive career, haven't you? Some of the different businesses you've worked at, the level of role you've got to. So, and I guess a lot of people that are either starting out or sort of been in the industry for a few years now will sort of probably look at the role you're in now with Seccl and the roles you've had at a couple of different companies before that and kind of go, look, if I could get to that level, that would be a really, really sort of great achievement. So I guess what would be interesting, because I noticed before we had this call, and we've not spoken about it before, but sort of looking back, obviously, you've had the mix.
Trick question.
It is
question coming now.
Trip you up now, Lorraine. So no, it's just because obviously you've had a mix of sort of perm and contract, and I think sort of a lot of people in IT will sort of either go down the route of perm and sort of want to progress their career, or they start in perm and then sort of realise the benefits of contracting, and then we'll sort of stay in that area. But it looks like you've kind of perm contracting, then back into perm and sort of climbed the career ladder again. So I guess I'd just be intrigued just to hear a little bit about that really, and sort of what the rationale from jumping from perm to contract was, how you found the contract world, and then why returning back to perm.
So I went from permanent to contract. It wasn't really a decision that it wasn't something I was looking for, but I'd started in a company, and actually the contractor that was working with us, he said to me, Lorraine, you really should go contracting. You really should. It's such a good opportunity. It was back in the late 90s when the financial reward was very, very beneficial, but I'd never really considered it. And he got a position he got presented with a position which he didn't want because he was married and had young kids, and he couldn't move away. It was down south. I would have had to have lived away, and so it was a big consideration. But me and my husband talked about it, and I decided to go for it, and I got it, and then quickly became a team leader in that role, and really enjoyed it. And from there, it was the financial benefits that were available, but also had a lot of opportunities. I worked with some really good people, really good companies, and kept going contracting really. Moving around and just working with some really good people in different opportunities. And then when IR35 first came in back, I can't quite remember the year it was, there was the implications of IR35 and the sort of financial changes that meant. I managed to keep out of it for the first year by having 2 concurrent contracts. So
Nice.
I was yeah, it was quite hard work. I was working at HP during the day, and I had a contract with Lloyds Bank. So I was working in the evenings for Lloyds Bank from home and going into the office at the weekends to install software in Newport when I needed it. So that was really good, and obviously financially it was very good, but it's quite hard to maintain that. And I didn't feel secure still going down the route of contracting when IR35 was coming in, and there's in those days of uncertainty around IR35. So I had an opportunity to go and work in Luxembourg, and as a contractor, and so I knew someone that was working out there. They said you should come over, you give it a try, and I went out to interview, got the job, and it was absolutely an amazing opportunity to work abroad, and I would encourage everybody to try it, to just do it and give it a go. And yeah, became team leader in Luxembourg. That was it was a fabulous opportunity. It was working for Schroders, so an investment bank. The buzz you get of working in the banking industry, and sort of you're talking big bucks that are coming through every day, and the pressure, and that it was good. It was a really good opportunity. But then 9/11 came in, and that hit the travel industry so bad that my travel arrangements getting to Luxembourg there and back every weekend it wasn't sustainable. One of the airlines in Luxembourg went down, SN Brussels, they went down the pan, so they didn't fly from Bristol to Brussels anymore. So it was all getting just the logistics of getting there and still coming back and having a life in Bristol was just too hard. So I came back to the UK, and I was actually looking for a permanent job because my husband had decided we would probably start a family. So I thought, I'll get a permanent job, get a bit more security. I couldn't get a permanent job when I came back. The market had just died, so I had to take another contract. I didn't want a contract, but I took one while looking for a permanent role. And so the move back to permanent really was because we wanted to start a family, and I wanted that security, and also didn't want to feel I had to travel or be away for work. So that was the real driver for coming back and being a permanent.
Fair enough, makes sense. And then you sort of managed to kind of, just looking through now, so senior web developer, head of software engineering, and then you sort of moved head of software engineering, dev lead at ALD, and now engineering manager. So how did you sort of make that? What was it? Was it sort of a switch? Because I guess the beautiful thing about sort of working in software engineering, I guess, is kind of you could still go down the hands-on engineering route, and in some organizations probably earn a very similar, if not an identical salary to kind of a head of or management role. But I guess it depends which. So I guess what was the switch for you that made you decide, look, it's more of a management and leadership role? What was it that sort of made you think that that's the right thing you wanted to pursue, rather than maybe going down sort of the principal, an architecture route?
Mm-hmm. So I was working at a very small company at the time. Well, I was in the same building for eight and a half years, but actually we morphed through 3 companies. And I had just come back to work after having my second child. I was a little bit out of skill in terms of web development. So I took one of their products that they had, which hadn't had any tender loving care for many, many years, and they wanted it just upgraded to more modern technology. At the time, jQuery had just come out, so I wanted to teach myself jQuery many years ago. And so I used to do a full day in the office, and then come home, put the kids to bed, and then from 8 o'clock till 12 o'clock each night, I worked on redeveloping the front end for this web application, and it was a mapping application. So it was really interesting, and just being able to see the difference in what I could make. And actually, that product now is still the forefront of technology for that company, and it's
Fair
still
play.
leading industry in the industry. So it's still so when I was as a result of sort of showing that commitment and doing that and being so passionate about that product, there was a management buyout from the bigger company to create the smaller company, and I was asked if I wanted to go with the smaller company and be involved in the buyout. So so I did that. So we went from being quite a big company to being a very, very small company of only 12 employees, and I was effectively the most senior technical person in the company. So and 5 of the company reported to me, so half of my team was half of the company, and that gave me a fantastic opportunity to just get involved in everything outside of the actual development. So I still did development, I was still hands-on, but I was involved in bid work, pre-sales, contract negotiations, development, testing, delivery, production support. So just it got that the whole, it just gave me a fantastic opportunity to be involved in everything. And because it was quite such a small company, I guess at the time I was struggling, and at the time we were sort of converted the UI to Angular, and things in the front end were just moving, technology-wise, were just moving so fast. I was struggling to keep up with the technology while also doing all the other management stuff that I was doing as well. So I sort of had to, it was a reluctant decision, but I sort of had to think, right, I've got to hands off, and just concentrate on the other stuff. So that was what I did, and I still like keeping my hands in. I can read code now. You don't want me writing any code, but I can read code. I could do probably debug code, but I don't write it. But I do still like really being involved technically, helping teams produce solutions. And it's not just about writing the code; it's about the whole ecosystem, from looking at requirements to the whole delivery, and breaking it down into iterative deliveries, and then the coding and the working in a sort of cross-functional team and looking at that delivery all the way through to production support. And I think that opportunity came about because it was such a small company, and that's just something I like doing now. Is that I'm not sort of blinkered into, I just want to look at development. It's the whole thing. I want to learn about the domain. Every time I've moved organisation, it's going into a new domain, a new business domain. So then having to learn that, I really enjoy that, taking that on. So it's not just about the technical side as well.
Makes sense. So it sounds like you've had a pretty interesting career then, in terms of sort of where you've worked, locations, different roles you've had, and then the career path you've had. And so that sounds really good. And I guess then a couple of things just before we move on, I suppose. I guess so. What would your advice be to someone then that sort of maybe is wanting to get to where you are, maybe who's got sort of 2 or 3 years experience? Because listening to you, it sounds like kind of maybe going contracting for a few years to get some sort of experience of that, and sort of changing organizations maybe every 6-12 months, and then sort of coming back into perm and then sort of progressing your career? Or are you better off, do you think, sort of staying in one role, progressing through, and then maybe moving after another 3 to 5 years? What would your opinion be on that, for someone sat there thinking, is it the right thing to do? Is it not the right thing to do? And also then just throw in there's that tricky thing though, isn't there, Lorraine? And I'm sure you're hiring. And when us wonderful recruiters put a contractor in front of into a perm role, hiring managers always get this nagging feeling, don't they? And I guess I'd be keen just to get your insight into those areas.
So I don't think these days there's a need to go contracting. I don't think contracting is possibly as beneficial as it used to be. You have to accept that you might be out of work at some point. There is that risk. But if you're young and you don't have any ties, then certainly actually give it a go. You'll get some good opportunities if you're prepared to travel and to move where the good opportunities are. And to go abroad, I think you've got to try that. But if that's not, if your financial situation is you don't want to do that, then there's so many opportunities in the Southwest as the IT. It's a candidates market at the minute. There's so many opportunities, and obviously I wouldn't give this advice to anybody in my team, but it's good to move companies to just to learn from other people and to get those different ways of working, to just increase your collaborative and just working with other experiences. So moving around is good, but obviously I wouldn't encourage anybody in my team to do that. But 3 years at a company will give you a lot of experience, and don't discount small companies, because I think what you get at small companies probably bigger opportunities, and the ability to influence things and make a bigger impact. So you couldn't be involved in the whole development life cycle rather than just the development side, and look at companies that do different ways of working. We all think I like to work in an agile way, but there is still companies that work in a waterfall, and don't dismiss it. Give it a go. Realise it's not for everybody, and then come back to the agile world. Come back to go and try the dark side, and then come back and find a company that works truly agile. And yeah, give it a go and just move around and learn from other people, and never be afraid to share your knowledge. People are sometimes scared of like teaching others and mentoring, and if I tell them how to do that, don't be like that. Just be open, and there'll always be opportunities.
Yeah. No, good advice. And I guess thinking about then sort of somebody who, I guess, because making that transition from sort of being maybe a lead dev and then maybe sort of mentoring one or two sort of people into sort of making that step then, I guess, of being sort of hands off sort of as a dev manager or sort of a head of development. I guess, what would your advice be to somebody who wants to take that step of maybe what are some of the skills they need to be demonstrating to be able to step up into that role, and some of the things for them to think about maybe from a positive perspective, but I guess maybe then some of the things that they may consider that they're missing?
Yeah, so I guess it's all those softer sides. It's that communication and being able to work well with people, being able to influence individuals, people outside your normal sphere of working. And it's all about the communication and the attitude. And you don't always need to necessarily drop all your technical skills to be take on management as well. It's a little bit harder juggling the two, but it's not that you have to do one or the other. There are opportunities out there when you can still stay hands-on and technical, and those are there. And if you have a technical background, then that it puts you in an even stronger position to mentor and bring on senior developers and make sure they're getting the opportunity for their own personal development. I mean, some people don't want to go into management, and that's fine. But what they will want to do is have progression and given the opportunities to always add value. So it's making sure that that's always available for people.
Definitely. No, and I think that's great advice. And I guess, Lorraine, I suppose you kind of touched upon it earlier on when you said when you sort of got into IT, sort of there were even lesser females than what there are today, and then there's still a long way to go, isn't there, between sort of creating more sort of diversity and inclusion into sort of all STEM subjects, but I guess in particular sort of technology. And if you were to boil that down, even in particular into sort of into the software engineering space, because there aren't many females particularly in that space. And I guess it was interesting what you said, sort of raising a family, but then you were sort of still doing that and then working from 8 till 12 to kind of teach yourself the new technology. So when you were sort of going back into work or there, you were still keeping yourself up to speed. And I guess I'd just be keen to just get your opinions and views on that, really, Lorraine. And I guess sort of what your advice again may be to sort of females thinking about that, and whether that's they're still at sort of sixth form or thinking about maybe sort of do they go into an apprenticeship or do they go into university, and is technology sort of a viable option? Because I guess some people have some real not concerns, that's probably the wrong word, but preconceived ideas, shall we say?
Oh, definitely, and it still does exist. But I'd say you have to do it. Go and do it. And I went away and had a family, and I never ever gave up my career. I took maternity leave, but I never had a longer than sort of maternity leave, and then came back to it. And I wouldn't encourage people to work a full day and then work from 8 to 12 every single night. But I was very passionate about what I wanted to do, and seeing the influence I could make such a difference in this company by helping to redevelop their product, where they didn't have any resource or money to do it, but it's sort of brought the company on. So I had a real motive behind doing that. So I wouldn't encourage people to do that, but having an interest in keeping your skills up to date. And companies are so much more inclusive these days, and looking after women's rights and maternity leave and things like that. And it won't hold you back being a woman. And in fact, I'll do a shameless plug here now for some work that Seccl are doing. So we're looking to start an apprenticeship program. And we're actually going to target underrepresented groups in IT. So we're looking at those that present as female and black, and we're going to target that recruitment in those areas. So we'll be going out to looking at meetup groups and tech groups that focus on those individuals, and that's something that we're actively doing now. We're looking at apprenticeship providers, and it will come in the next couple of months. And also Seccl run a digital academy, and they've run it for a couple of years now. And what they do is they take in the summer holidays, they take university students for 8 weeks, and they bring them into the company and they show them all the areas of a digital company. And it's not just all about engineering, it's the product side of it, it's the UX side of it, it's the data analysis side, and just to show it's not all about engineering. You don't have to be a software developer. There's so much more to technology jobs these days. And seeing the talent in these young people that come through it's scary how talented they are. And out of the interns we've taken in the last couple of years, they've then come back to Seccl as placement students and working part-time while they finish their last year. It's just the skill in these people. Just go out and grab every opportunity you can.
And are they people from computer science sort of backgrounds, or where do you sort of look to take them from then?
Not at all. We take anything. We look at anybody really. We don't discount, so you have to have a computer science degree. I mean, some of the best people I've worked with in my career have not came from a computer science background. They've had a maths degree, or they've had a chemistry degree, a physics degree, or they've not actually came through university. Some of my sort of devs that I've developed along the way have came from an apprenticeship. And they've joined in an admin role in a company and worked their way up. So there is every opportunity out there. If you have the passion and the enthusiasm, the opportunities are there to go and grab. And in terms of making it more diverse, just encourage any female out there to go for it, definitely. Years ago, there might have been a stigma about women working in IT. It's not there anymore. But I have quite a funny story of working at a well-known UK telecoms provider and going to a meeting, and at the start of the meeting there was some cups and saucers on the side, and I just happened to be stood by the cups and saucers pouring myself a cup of tea, and quite a high manager came in and says, "Oh, I'll have a coffee," and I says, "Well, that's the urn on the right," and walked away. And so when I then started the meeting and chaired the whole technical meeting, he was like, "Oh, actually, she wasn't here to make the tea." So,
he felt a bit of a plonker.
Those things don't happen anymore. We're talking in excess of 20 years, but that doesn't happen anymore. The industry is trying to change and trying to be better. So there's definitely opportunities out there.
Definitely. And I think, like I said, listening to you, I know we've spoken about before, but what you guys are doing at Seccl, I think is brilliant. And I think as an industry, the more we can all do to encourage sort of people into careers in technology and like you said, sort of taking people from not the obvious route, because I mean I've worked in recruitment for a number of years and sort of I remember back when you had sort of graduate or entry level roles and they must have a first class in computer science or mathematics, it must be from a red brick university, and if they don't possess those two things, I don't even want to see their CV. And I think that the industry's moved on, but there are still places that have some of those views on the types they like to hire. But as to you said, I mean, some of the people that I've worked with and built relationships over the years have not come from those backgrounds, and they've gone on to achieve much bigger, greater things from not necessarily having that background. So I think the more we can all do to sort of shout about it and sort of create more inclusion and diversity, I think is brilliant. If you can hear my dog barking, I do apologise. Joys of an office dog. But no, I think that's brilliant. And I guess then sort of on that subject, Lorraine, I guess it'd just be interesting to get your opinion. So when you're building your team at Seccl and where you've done it before, what are some of those sort of key attributes that you look for? And maybe someone wanting to get into a career in tech. Obviously, like you said, you can teach them the tech skills, but what are some of those softer skills that you look for that people need to be thinking about how they're going to demonstrate in an interview and sort of just mulling around in their head? Because it doesn't always come through on a job spec from a company, does it? On a job spec from a company, it's very clear around sort of the technical elements they're wanting. But from your experience, what are some of those softer areas that you love to see at interview that you'd go, look, okay, maybe you're not technically the strongest person I've interviewed, but culturally wise, you're hands and down sort of beating everyone?
So attitude has got so much to do with it. Attitude and communication skills. If someone is just open to talking, being very open and honest, and saying, actually, I don't have those skills, being able to operate and just communicate is so key to everything we do in IT these days. It's you're talking with, it's not just other technical people, it's business people, stakeholders, product managers. So that communication skill, while also showing a passion for it, doing your own research, looking at the skills that may be out there, looking at YouTube, and being just passionate about technology. And it doesn't really, the experience will come, and we can teach you those technical things, but that communication and behaviour and attitude is really everything.
Mm-hmm. No, good. And you've kind of answered these ones already, but I guess I always like just to push. So, like I said, a lot of things can come in kind of into engineering. People kind of assume I've got to go to university, it's got to be computer science, it's got to be mathematics. I guess what would you say for somebody maybe who is at sixth form, kind of thinking about what options have I got? Because maybe university isn't for me, but what other options could I think about?
So there's a lot of apprenticeships around these days. A lot of the big companies run them. A lot of the colleges will run them. I've actually got a 17-year-old son who's got an apprenticeship. He's not doing IT, but he's doing general. I was a little bit gutted about that, but he's doing general engineering, and he will have a rotation around manufacturing and production, but he will have an IT rotation as well. And because the academic route for him wasn't right, so he started college 40 hours a week when he was 16, and he's earning from that, and he'll have that opportunity. And now there's there's A levels, but there's also the T level standards that are coming out, and they're more industry focused. So it doesn't have to always be academic. So you can go and do the A levels, or at 16 you can get an apprenticeship these days. There's so many opportunities. I actually interviewed someone the other week, and they were saying that they had started out developing Discord bots, and that's how they got into it. And now they were an approved Discord developer. It's just there's opportunities out there, and do it. You don't have to go to university.
Definitely. And I think then one of the other things we're seeing more of is obviously sort of post what's happened with COVID. Obviously, a number of people have unfortunately lost their jobs and are sort of looking at sort of career changes. And I guess what's your opinion on people that are doing that and maybe going through some of these sort of academies? I mean, there are a number of great ones that happen in the Southwest. But again, what would your be advice to somebody who's thinking about that? Is that a viable way to start a career again in engineering? Maybe you've had a completely different career and decided that tech is now something that could be the right industry, because we've all seen technology sort of thrive over the last 18 months when a lot of industries have found it pretty tough.
Oh, definitely. And actually, in the last 2 roles I've had, we've taken people that have came from boot camps, some of the best people we've worked with. So, and again, it all comes down to attitude and a passion for doing what you want to do. So go and give it a go. And for like Seccl's apprenticeships, we'll probably be looking at career changers. When someone's made that decision to make a career change, the commitment that decision to get to that point and make that decision, that's a big decision. So they're going to be so much more committed into making a success of it. So give it a go and give it a try. Do your research on the provider, do your due diligence on the provider, but definitely the opportunities are there, and it won't hold you back.
Brilliant advice. Anything else you want to cover off, Lorraine, that we've not gone over that you're keen to get out there?
I'll do another shameless plug for one of the meetups that I'm involved in, help organise, is Developer Southwest, DDD Southwest. So we had to cancel the conference this year, so it's a technology-based conference, one-day conference. It'll be next April. It'll be a full day Saturday. It's free, and we'll be doing a call for speakers, and we'll be putting out the tickets. Have a look at us. Developer, and we're also looking for sponsorship. So if there's anybody out there looking for sponsorship opportunities, get in touch.
That sounds good. And what clearly it's aimed at developers, Lorraine, but I guess what does it look like? What does the day involve?
So we'll have 4 tracks, and there'll be presenters, 4 or 5 presenters in each track. And some of it will be technology based, some of it will be ways of working. We're sort of technology agnostic. So we put shout out for speakers, and then people will submit what they want to talk about, and then that goes out to the community, and they'll vote on the speakers they want to see, and then we'll take the popular ones, and we'll put that together into a free day of it's for the community, by the community.
That sounds good. And I guess, is that Southwest based?
Yeah, so DDD Southwest, we're not quite, we're still finalising the venue, but it'll be Central Bristol.
Nice, exciting. Well, look, we'll quite happily give that a push, because I think, again, the more things that happen in the region, I think the better, because Bristol's got a lot better over the last 5-6 years at doing sort of some really cool tech focused events. I think so the more of those things that happen, the better. So that's good. But I guess, look, appreciate you giving up your time, Lorraine. I know you're a busy lady in a new role and doing lots of exciting things. So thank you for giving up an hour of your life to come and talk to us. And look, we'll get this turned into a good podcast. I think there'll be some people out there that will find it really interesting and useful, the content. So appreciate that. Thank you.
Good stuff. Thanks so much.